And welcome back, everybody. We are here and now with the Thursday Night Hammer. I am one of your hosts, Michael Sicoli, joined here by Nick Grohl. How are you doing today, Nick?
We're doing all right, man. We're doing all right. How you doing?
I'm stellar. It's been a bit of a rainy day, and now the sun's coming out by me, so I can't really complain too much. But we do have a good Thursday night game to get into. But before we do that, we definitely have had a lot of takeaways from the weekend that are mostly concerning in a way of usage. Guys like ETN taking in that RB dead zone, Derrick Henry taking the first round, Tampa, a whole bunch of big names there that are all of a sudden really not panning out with fantasy, and we are not starting to get a little bit concerned in some ways, or maybe not. We're going to talk about that all on this show. Before we get into that, just want to give a shout out, of course, for frequency's sake. You're watching it right now. Make sure you're following on Twitter as well as YouTube. Subscribe, turn notifications on. Ton of amazing podcasts coming every single week. So, Nick, we got a lot of lines here, a lot of headlines before we get to the Thursday night game. Which one do you want to pull up first?
Let's talk about that Miami Baltimore game because that was a wild one. Took some people by surprise. Almost won me a lot of money in DFS, but it's really hard to win a tournament in DFS. But is Tua for real, in your opinion? What are you thinking about Tua right now?
I think that Tua is a perfect fit for what Mike McDaniels wants to do. And I've been a Tua fan in the sense that I always thought it was dumb to write him off because he had a horrific hip injury. And he comes out, he's not great coming off the horrific hip injury. And then you add Tyreek, you add Waddle, and it just felt like such a perfect breakout situation that I don't know if Tua is going to be the long term. I don't know if they make the playoffs. I think they could be a one and done easily, especially that defense. But offensively, the pieces are there, and when they make all these moves, I like to ride this out because it's a breakout that just makes sense to me. And Buffalo's going to be a real test this week.
Yeah. So I think I'm tempering expectations a little bit in terms of Tua as an individual player. But Tua in this Mike McDaniel system with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle is definitely something I'm interested in. I think they're kind of clicking. I think Mike McDaniel is a sharp guy. What if it was Mike McDaniel all along and not Kyle Shanahan? I saw that take today. But yeah, this guy's smart. He went to Yale. Seems like a pretty sharp guy. Their pass rate over expectation is tops in the league, and just from a numbers perspective, passing is a more efficient play than a run play. They don't really have like any all-star running backs, but they have two just absolutely freak wide receivers, and it was really fun. I think we're going to see lots of Tua double stacks go off this year in DFS. And what's up, Deej? And some things to point out about Tua is like the numbers still don't look good in terms of like what efficiency metrics we can boil down to the player only. And then on the field, I'm sure you see like he's underthrowing Tyreek, he's underthrowing Waddle. He doesn't have Josh Allen like arm strength. So Tua, the prospect, it's great for now. I think he's just going to be a player that's very sensitive to his surroundings. But it's good to see him take a step forward. I know I kind of sound like a Tua hater right now, but I definitely wasn't as low on people on him as he was. But nothing's changed about Tua the player is the main point I want to make. Yeah. But what has changed is the Dolphins are a good football team on both sides of the ball, actually.
Both sides of the ball. I still have questions about that defense. That defense just it's allowing a lot of yards and a lot of completions over this.
That take is. I need to walk that one back. That take is based mostly on the fact that I played them in week 1 and they scored like 20 points. They got kind of boat raced a little bit by the Ravens. The Ravens defense is also not bad. They're very beat up right now, and also we're exhausted from chasing Tyreek and Waddle around, which every team is going to be exhausted. But
yeah. And I do think if we're talking defensively, I think Jalen Phillips is in for a big day at some point on the IDP front or just the NFL front for that. Entering his second year right now. So
I'll plug it for you. Check out IDP guys. This guy Mike Sicoli is over there at IDP guys. I don't play IDP personally, but if you're one of the people that do, you definitely need to be. You know what? I keep pausing when I talk about IDP people. I want to call you sickos. Is that appropriate? Are people that play IDP sickos?
Why not? I feel like we're all sickos in this community, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as you go over to like Sleeper and you move away from the generic ESPNs and Yahoos, I think you lose a bit of your soul a little bit. You donate it to the
Yeah, that's
NFL gods.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm all for it. It's a trade I'm willing to make and would make again. But yeah, double the football, double the fun. That's what I like to say.
All right, yeah. I mean,
but
there's some
those,
cool athletes on the other side of the ball there.
Oh,
But
yeah.
anyway, a little bit of an IDP plug for the people. You want to go to the other Florida team and talk about Travis Etienne? What's going on?
Yeah, so Travis Etienne, a very popular player, being taken in the third, fourth rounds this year, especially by me. I'm not gonna hide from my take. I was taking him everywhere, and it's not feeling great right now, ladies and gentlemen, because I was not anticipating James Robinson being the world's biggest outlier of Achilles injury returns. And Travis Etienne is splitting time now. And if he was getting more receiving work, I'd be fine with it. He's hovering around 3 targets a game. I'm not panicking on Etienne. I'm not selling because I don't think the value is there right now. And I do think he's still a good player. Mm-hmm. I'm going to sit him if I have other options. Like, I'm going to try to find other options. I don't want to play him against the Chargers this week, personally.
Yeah. People want Travis Etienne to be something that he's not right now. And he's just not like first day he steps on the field healthy, like an electric player. Like he just isn't beating James Robinson out. And like that seems weird to us. James Robinson was an undrafted free agent. You also have to think like this is a weird situation with in between, like James Robinson was with one regime, right?
Yep.
They draft Travis Etienne after James Robinson has the breakout rookie year as like the undrafted free agent.
Yep.
Urban Meyer comes in and drafts Etienne, and that was a head scratcher at the time because why? You're the Jags. You need so much help. You're running back in the first round is a luxury pick, and it's just not something they had the luxury to do. Anyway, so 2 regimes, 2 different running backs, new regime, a third regime here is not tied to either one. So they're just playing the better running back. And James Robinson's better in the run game and the pass game. Period. He just is.
I won't admit that in the passing game just yet, but I'll say this, and it's something I weighed in the preseason, obviously, and it's something that I erred on the side of the upside versus this concern. But Doug Peterson, this is such a Doug Peterson split. Like this, we've seen this before. We saw this in Philadelphia where 2 guys, they can work and they could really produce for an NFL team, and the Eagles could get a rushing attack going, but it's not one. And if it is, then it's not the same thing the next week. And all of a sudden you see Boston Scott pulling up. And if the weeks are going to be a little bit hit and miss for a team that isn't going to be frequenting the red zone enough. And I do think that the Jaguars are a much better team this year than we have had in 3 years at least. I think this offense is a better unit. I think it's a better coached team than we've had. So all that contributes to a better surrounding for Etienne and James Robinson subsequently. But they're just going to eat into each other's value. And it's going to be hard to pick a week. And I still like what I see from Etienne when he touches the ball, especially week 1. I thought he was really efficient with his touches. But this was a concern of mine. And when I see that validated, you have to adjust. And I think I want to be wrong about Etienne at this point for a week. You know, like I'll be off of him and then he'll go off. Like I'm okay with that. Yep.
Because there's a solid chance that never happens this season, right? I won't say it never happens, period, but there's a chance it just doesn't happen this year without a James Robinson injury. I think like right now, like I know no one wants to admit this, but like Travis Etienne is basically like a J.D. McKissic plus.
We are so on the same wavelength because as sad as it is, that is exactly what was going through my head. Of like, if J.D. McKissic's probably on my wire, and he's probably going to do exactly what McKissic's going to do. He's going to get 3 to 6 carries. Etienne maybe gets a couple more, but McKissic gets a couple more catches. Neither will probably find the end zone because they're splitting it with other guys that get the red zone work. On offenses that the Washington's strolling down the field, but weaker matchups. We'll see if that continues.
Yeah. I heard some tape guys talk about how like James Robinson just hits the interior hole better, whereas Etienne just wants to bounce it outside. Like if he can't become that running back, like he's J.D. McKissic, Nyheim Hines, like maybe with a little more juice. You know what I mean? Because like, but still, like that's just we might need to adjust what Travis Etienne's ceiling is until we see him do some stuff that he hasn't done yet. And it's early. It's really early on in his career. But yeah, I mean, he's in that running back dead zone. Like, when are we going to learn, basically? We're always like, we have this dead zone, but we can always make an exception for some of these young guys, and we talk ourselves into it. And it's just a roller coaster, and there's not as many peaks as there are valleys, unfortunately. Speaking of peaks and valleys, what a segue, huh? Tell me about Derrick Henry. Are we pressing the panic button on him?
Well, I don't know if we've even seen the peak this season. So we just had the valley where he rushed for 89 inefficient yards in week 1. He was completely stifled on Monday Night Football this past week to the tune of 25 yards. If he doesn't punch that touchdown in, we're talking about him all week as a guy that just put up 1 point and then got outplayed by Hassan Haskins, who was playing against, I guess, backups. But yes, I've been off of Derrick Henry all offseason because he's the type of guy I view Derrick Henry. This might be hot. I view them like Zeke, in a way that I don't know if he's still the player he was. And if he's not, the team is not going to get him the ball. And I guess it's not exactly the perfect comp, but if Derrick Henry is not what Derrick Henry was, the Titans can't move the ball. They've already got rid of the only way they can move out the ball in A.J. Brown, and they refused to give Treylon Burks the ball or let him run routes. So the Titans will exist on their own end of the field. And if Derrick Henry is not able to get them there single-handedly, like he's done a year past sometimes, there's nothing there. It's an early down back with little touchdown upside.
So Derrick Henry, the last 2 years, even before he got hurt last year, I'll offer a little bit of comfort to the Derrick Henry drafters out there, but we need to say I was not recommending anybody draft him in any preseason stuff that I did. But anyway. Derrick Henry, remember, does kind of get going in the cold winter months, right? That's kind of when the Titans in general tend to improve as the season goes on. I think that has a lot to do with Mike Vrabel's coaching style, which seems to work in terms of I do think that he has gotten the most out of his teams the past few years. The Titans in general have been running a little bit more pure in the luck category in terms of third down conversions. Like just rates are higher than they should be. One that probably had a lot to do with A.J. Brown just being an outlier player, Derrick Henry being an outlier player, and Ryan Tannehill playing well. So all that is to say that Derrick Henry was getting by on his offensive environment being very efficient, he himself being very efficient. And even if he still is an efficient runner and taking souls like we know Derrick Henry does, but his team is not the same efficient team that it has been, he's going to struggle to keep pace with some of these ceiling backs. And I think that's kind of where I'm at with him. I think Derrick Henry's median projection is probably going to stay right around 15, 16, 17 points, which is typical for your elite running back. Whereas his ceiling projection might not be 28, 29, 30 when I'm running the numbers.
21.
Yeah, because he's not really in the pass game. He's not going to have those touchdown opportunities that he usually does. But I'll let the film guys, I'll let people that watch a little bit more of the games tell me if he's lost a step. And you seem to be telling me that he's lost a step.
Oh my goodness! And yes, that's part of it as well, is that this Titans line has taken a hit. It took a hit in the offseason. It lost pieces, and now it just lost Taylor Lewan for, I believe he's out for the season. Their tackler, there's feared to be. So that's a huge loss. And if anybody watched Monday, yes, the Bills were swarming to the ball, but how many tackles do you think he broke on those 13 carries? Derrick Henry, monster of a man.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to take a guess, Nick? It's zero. It's zero. He broke 0 tackles. It looked it as well. I'm sorry. He looks slow. He looks like he can't get to the hole. And with this line being as bad as it is, I am really concerned. So I've been telling everyone that it's okay. I'm ready to shop. I really am, because I don't want a player that I'm at all concerned about. If I don't know if I'm not confident that he is here as a talent and he won't get passing work on a team that I think is going to be bad. I don't think the Titans figure it out this year. This is it. And then it's a crater as well. Like,
Yeah.
like imagine Derrick Henry in February. If we're talking about dynasty, oh my goodness,
You
we
want
could
Derrick Henry or James Conner the rest of the way?
James Conner. James Conner.
Whew.
James
All
Conner can
right.
get in the end zone. That's what it comes
Okay.
down to. I think it's a good
All
comp
right.
in a way, but James Conner has a greater chance of scoring. That's
So,
what it comes down to.
I mean, you can probably go out and get Derrick Henry for James Conner
James Conner
done
plus, yeah.
pretty easily. I don't hate that. I would be asking for a pretty solid depth piece or like flex play along
Traylon
with James
Burks.
Conner.
Let's go James Conner and Traylon Burks. I
All
would do
right.
that deal.
All right.
That
I actually like
yeah.
this. I like
Yeah,
this
go.
next topic a lot. Because this is an interesting situation. The Jets wide receiver situation. Tell me about obviously Elijah Moore did okay week 1. Garrett Wilson was on the milk carton, nowhere to be found. Week 2, Garrett Wilson just can't stay out of the end zone. Absolutely blows up. He's the number 1 waiver ad in every article you read this week. Garrett Wilson or Elijah Moore rest of season. Who you got?
Okay. So there's so much that's going to change here when Zach Wilson comes back. And that's why I do think it's still Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore is a great talent. I think he's the only one who's really played with Zach Wilson as well. I think that matters more than we're really making it out to be. I don't know when we're going to see Zach Wilson back. I think it's supposed to be 2 weeks, supposed to be after week 4, but we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully he's back. Flacco's riding high for him right now. I think they could easily ride him out. And while Flacco's out there, fine playing what's it called? I'm fine playing Garrett Wilson because he's like, this is something I talked to Traylon Burks all offseason. Love Traylon Burks. Garrett Wilson was right there with him. He was the 1B to my Traylon Burks 1A. A lot of people had that order reversed, if not just confident 1. Garrett Wilson is he's a really good player, but he's still on an offense that's not going to drop 31 points or run 70-plus plays. They ran 70-plus plays this past weekend. That's not going to happen every week.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
It's really important. And I think the guy, ironically, while it's Joe Flacco, the one I feel most comfortable playing is Corey Davis. I think he's the guy who's shown the most rapport with what's it called? With
Joe Flacco.
Thank you. And he's going to be on the field because he's a good blocker. He's a good fit in the scheme. And best yet, he's a good player. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of roulette with the Jets, but I would play Corey Davis this week against the Bengals. I feel good about that.
Wow, I was not expecting an Elijah Moore versus Garrett Wilson question that you would go with Corey Davis. But I mean, Corey Davis is not like ancient. He's a established NFL wide receiver. He kind of has a very specific contract. Yeah, he has a very like specific way that he wins. And it's like a weird like alpha light, you know what I mean? Like he'll go up and like alpha somebody, but he doesn't do a lot of the like intermediate stuff. Like he's just a go up and get it wide receiver.
Marvin
and I
Jones.
think coming into I think coming into the season, I think they were, because he went really high in the draft, like top 10. And I think like you go top 10, you expect to win all over the field, but I'm already making too many player takes, but I think you highlighted an interesting thing with like a lot of people want to assign like Joe Flacco to certain wide receivers and Zach Wilson to certain wide receivers. And it does seem that they have their favorites, but in general, the quarterback situation in New York is so bad that I don't think that they are necessarily good enough to like have their guy. You know what I mean? I think they're just kind of, it's a little frantic, like find whoever's open, right? And whoever's going to be open is going to get the ball. Just because we need to keep things simple for these not so great quarterbacks. And my take on it is, it might be oversimplified, is Garrett Wilson has the draft capital over Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore was taken in the 2nd round 2 years ago, and a year ago, and Garrett Wilson was taken 10th overall in this year's draft. That's significant.
Yes.
Because when I'm like projecting like rookies coming into the league, like the curve that I'm applying to that in terms of like projected fantasy points based off of draft capital alone, it's not linear. It's not like you get 10 points for a 2nd round, 20 points for 1st round. It's like you get 5 points for the 2nd round and 25 points for the 1st. Like it's an exponential growth curve. Like second to first round and then like late first round to beginning first round is such a massive difference in the type of player that you have the potential to be. And I typically I just need to see it once from a guy like Garrett Wilson, and I'm all over I'm all over him, spending fab on him, starting him. It's going to be frustrating, but I'm hopefully you've built a team in a way where you can survive a down week from a Jets wide receiver. If you didn't, you probably drafted wrong. If Garrett Wilson's my wide receiver 3-year flex, I'm starting him. If I'm depending on him to be a wide receiver 2, I'm probably looking elsewhere, but that's kind of the way I play it. And Garrett Wilson over Elijah Moore.
Garrett Wilson, believe it or not, is tied for the most amount of red zone targets in the league right now with Jamar Chase. That's 5. That's the stat that I asked among all my friends. Not a single one of them even thought that would be possible or in the running. That's real, and that's good value. Those are the valuable targets. The one thing I'll throw out before we answer Assassin's question down here, it's this situation with New York. If Zach Wilson is the guy, I don't think either of us really project him as that, but if Zach Wilson is the guy, the ceiling in New York, man, the Jets could all of a sudden, this is a playoff roster if Zach Wilson is a good quarterback. I'm saying the weapons are unbelievable on that team.
My grandmother always says to me, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. Zach Wilson, unfortunately, is not the guy. I don't know that you can play Zach Wilson over Joe Flacco when he comes back. They have to. But he's just not that guy.
I'm more so saying for the future. It's going to be a weird offseason, especially if that's not. We have a question in here. Should I panic and trade DJ Moore in full PPR?
My opinion on it, it's 2 weeks. I personally am not making any rash decisions until I see 4 weeks of data. And there's pretty good evidence that if a player is not meeting ADP by week 4 and it's significant enough, then it's probably likely that the ADP might have been wrong on him. So DJ Moore went in the end of round 4, round 5, depending on what platform you're on. He's not performing to that level. If he's still kind of struggling in this offense in Carolina doesn't look like it's going to be a great fantasy football offense outside of a few players like Christian McCaffrey, I think will eventually get going. I think if that's the case at week 4, you trade him. Who I'm trying to trade DJ Moore for, I'd probably see if I could get one of these rookies that hasn't quite popped yet, but still getting good usage, like a Treylon Burks. Yes, sir. That was uncanny. So that would be a good one. And then because you can always get Treylon Burks, who might just end up outperforming him rest of season, just period. And then you could probably have him throw in a depth piece for you. I always like trying hey, throw in Nyheim Hines while you're at it, while we're here, that type of thing. So hopefully that was helpful, Assassin. It's a good question. A lot of people are pressing the panic button on DJ Moore. A lot of people are pressing the panic button on Tampa Bay. I feel really bad for Tom Brady. I was hoping that this was his year after a tough career he's had. But Tampa Bay, I'll just start off by saying they're playing differently. And a lot of people want to say it's because Tom Brady's arm's going, but that doesn't seem to be what people see on the tape. It's mostly just because he has no wide receivers. And what I mean by is their pass rate over expectation is it's basically they're throwing the ball less than they should. It's below the average. So what are you seeing out of Tampa Bay? And I guess how are you thinking about them moving forward?
I mean, I was anticipating Julio practicing today, which he did not. I'm hoping he gets back tomorrow. The injuries are a big deal. Mike Evans obviously not going to be there this week. That's suspension related, but Chris Godwin is now he was a re-injury risk that I've been hands off of this offseason because of that, especially guys coming off those ACLs to just overcompensate elsewhere. We touched on that last week, I think. So they bring in Cole Beasley, and wow, this is just a suddenly very different Tampa Bay team. And Tom Brady does not look great. He's not throwing downfield. I think he's only completed 8 or so. He's bottom 5 in yards in 10-plus yard completions downfield. And those are, again, we talked about before with the red zone targets, those are the valuable targets. So that's what you want. We want downfield looks. And it's a 2-week sample size. There's a new offensive line. It's a new coach. We have rotating receivers through just 2 weeks. I think Tampa settles down. I think it figures itself out. I think it's still going to be a little bit of growing pains until they get that unit back out there. They need Mike Evans back out there. They just lost Akeem Hicks on the defensive line as well. It's kind of a mess in Tampa, but I do think I think they'll still figure it out. Especially Brady also missed, he missed 11 days. He just took off in August that he never takes off. Brady does not take days off.
Yeah.
So a slow start. There's a lot of reasons to suggest that it's understandable at least.
So like my take on it is like I saw like some good stats, like time to throw stats and air yard stats about Tom Brady in terms of he's getting the ball out really quickly.
Yep.
And he's still pushing it downfield, that's good news in terms of like his arm strength. It's pretty incredible. Because like when you're 45 years old, like a typical 45-year-old like has a significant like reduction in core strength, which is like that's the number one thing. Like arm strength is also part of it, but like I said, I do have a science degree, but I'm not a medical doctor. So I'm already talking above my head, but it's just impressive what he's doing. And I agree with you. I do think that this situation will kind of even itself out. They'll get some players back on the field. I think moving forward, I am worried about the offensive line. Like really worried about the offensive line, but it's Brady. He'll find a way. And he's getting the ball out quickly, which kind of takes the offensive line out of it a little bit. So there's going to be a week. I'm hoping I'm a week early on Tampa Bay in terms of like DFS. I'll continue stacking them because the optimizers still like them. They still project well, but not so much if their wide receiver core is all hurt or suspended or whatever's going on with them. Let's talk a little bit about tonight's game. We got our own Steelers traveling to Cleveland to take on the Browns. And that weird thing they had in the middle of their field, that elf.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
What a weird franchise, man. It's just I wish we had relegation. Tell me a little bit about tonight's game. Just hit these quick hitters for the people, and then we'll have a couple takes, maybe a rant, and get out of here.
Sure. The Steelers 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 meetings with the Browns. A lot has changed since then. Obviously, under center for both teams, Jacoby Brissett instead of Baker Mayfield, and Mitch Trubisky instead of Ben Roethlisberger. That's significant. So I'm not putting too much stock in historic numbers with this type of game. I do think it's going to be low scoring. The over-under is at 30.5, and I still think it'd be under that. But both teams coming off disappointing losses. Steelers with the Patriots and Browns losing a heartbreaker. The Browns, I don't know if you saw this, on Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday, maybe it was Tuesday, they held a players-only meeting. No Stefanski, anything.
Always good after week 2 to
after
have a
week 2.
players-only meeting.
I mean, they collapsed against the Jets. So how they respond this week is just interesting to watch as a football fan, let alone anything else. I don't feel confident in anyone in this game. I actually have an interesting situation, Nick. I'll run it by you since it has Chase Claypool in it. Chase Claypool, I could play him right now. I'm probably an underdog in this matchup. Or I could try to play Judy, and if he doesn't play, I could pivot to Cole Beasley, Tyler Conklin, Nico Collins. Real dart throws.
I think I'm playing Claypool.
That's typically where I'm at as well. So what's your expectations for Chase Claypool tonight? Because it's weird. He's getting the snaps, as is George Pickens, as is Deontay Johnson, but the ceiling's so low when this offense is throwing the ball 5 yards down the field.
Yeah, so I think if you want to grab your coat and take a walk down Narrative Street with me, I see the game playing out like this today. I think you're going to see a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. They're going to push Mitch to push the ball downfield and into the middle of the field, which he has just been basically throwing these lasers to the sideline, just praying that it doesn't get picked off. He does not look good. I think this is a big audition for Trubisky, or rather the end of his audition, because I think that if he struggles tonight in a pass-heavy game plan on the road, when we'll probably be trailing and need to score fast, just because I don't think we're as good as the Browns right now, even with Jacoby Brissett. Sorry. I think there will be enough to go around, and Claypool will be a big part of that. I do think that he'll be the number 2. I think they'll scheme some runs to him. You didn't really see it last week. Wasn't really part of the game plan like it was week 1. But yeah, I think Deontay I think everybody can get there, because again, the Steelers are on the road, divisional game, first of the year. It could get weird. I'm definitely playing Bateman Assassin in the flex this week, just because Judy he's injured. He might not even play. Keep an eye on that. But even if Judy's fully healthy, I just think Bateman's going to see his usage continue to rise, and he's a really good player.
Judy also has San Fran, which is not a very friendly matchup. As much as I am a Judy guy, and I do think that it works out this year for him as week one showcased, hoping to build off of that. I would try to avoid him this week, whether he plays or not. And I didn't see if he played today, if he practiced today, but I know he didn't practice Wednesday. Still dealing with that rib injury, so we'll see whether he even gets out there against San Fran. But tonight, I do like Deontay Johnson. I like his lines. I think this Brown secondary is exploitable, and Joe Woods has been struggling as their defensive coordinator back there. So I think there are spark plays that we could see from each of these. The only way the Steelers come away with this game is if Minkah Fitzpatrick continues what he's doing, which he is currently. I think he's forcing a 35 passer rating when targeted, which is it's if you throw it into the ground, it's worse than it's better than if you target Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's what he's currently.
Yeah, at least
doing
it won't get intercepted if you throw it at the ground. That's a good point.
So it's an unsustainable level, but
yeah. I agree with you. I do think. You want to play Claypool, but again, narrative street. George Pickens was quoted saying, "I'm open 99% of the time, and I'm not getting the ball."
But
Mitch Trubisky said after the last press conference that he knows that he needs to do something differently, and that's get George Pickens the ball. So I think you hit a lot of the points. I'll give other people a little bit of taste. The optimal lineup that I run based on 10 projection sources, it's been winning at like a 66% rate, and head-to-heads. We got Mitch Trubisky in the captain spot, and then you figure it out from there. So let's get out of here. Mike Sicoli, make sure you check him out at IDP Guys. Check him out on Twitter at Michael__Sicoli. I tell you to follow me, but I don't really tweet anymore. So I'm too busy running the numbers. I have some content over at gridironai.com. You can check it out there. Or you can check out what I am posting on social media. It's on Instagram now under the handle gridiron.ai. Check it out. All kinds of promo codes and stuff, link in bio, all that fun stuff to get some free access to betting models, stuff that's done really well and is backed up by math, which, I mean, take it for what it's worth. But yeah, so gridironai.com, Instagram, gridiron.ai. Anything to say to the people before we get out of here, Mike?
No, nothing else to add. I think George Pickens gets his touchdown tonight. That's all I'll say. Plus 550 anytime touchdown score.
If he scores a touchdown tonight, I will be on Broad Street barking like a dog. Good night, everybody.
Good night.